Thank you so much, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Angela Gartland. I'm the Director of Identity Assurance at the Internal Revenue Service. And we're here to, I want to thank you for the opportunity. We're here to talk about how the IRS was able to quickly ramp up and stand up our modernized, secure digital identity platform. And I have here with me today Wes Turbeville. Wes?
Hi, everyone. I'm Wes Turbeville. I'm the Senior Vice President of Federal at IDME, which means I lead our service and support to the 16 federal agencies that we currently serve on identity needs. And for those of you who don't know who IDME is, we're a digital identity network. Today, we support 16 federal agencies, a little over 40 state agencies, and around 500 private sector entities across a broad range of identity and also attribute verification needs. We have around 130 million accounts, and 60 million of those are verified to a high level of assurance in accordance with NIST. But looking forward to talking today.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Wes. Before we get started, I want to take a quick poll. Can I see a show of hands of how many in the room have an IRS online account? How many? Thank you. Keep your hand up if you've accessed it within the last year. All right, great. Those of you who don't have their hand up, please go to irs.gov, create an online account, and you'll find out real soon why. We have got a lot of great things coming your way, and some big news that broke today. So I want to start off here. The clicker's not working, so. As I said, I'm Angela Gartland. I lead the Identity Assurance Organization at IRS. I see a lot of my colleagues here in the room, some familiar faces that I've met throughout the week. It's been a great couple days. I'm responsible. I have a team of folks and partnership across the IRS. My organization is responsible for strategy and policy around authentication, authorization, and access at IRS. That includes everything digital as well as non-digital, our various interactions, whether it's online, telephone, paper, in person, and so forth. And to carry out the work we do, we collaborate with internal, external partners. We have our IT, cyber, the business units that interact with the taxpayers, our counsel, our legal, our research team, as well as externals. There's, as you know, there's a lot of oversight over the IRS, and we have various partners outside, including those oversight organizations, as well as various vendors like IDME. And we provide those, the policy, the strategies. We support our IT and cyber partners in the technology to protect taxpayer information, but also enable their access online to get to the services, the tools that they need to meet their filing obligations, while protecting their data from fraudsters, from identity theft, and we're going to talk about that a little bit as well. So through various, still here, the problem statement. So through our modernization initiatives, we have deployed our modernization identity platform. Back several years ago, we launched our legacy secure access authentication system. We have about 29 million users who had access to IRS services through that system. However, it was not federal NIST compliant. It required the users, in order to verify their identity, to have a financial footprint, which brought unique challenges to those individuals who didn't have financial records or financial footprint or the identity documents they needed to create their online account. So flashing back to March of 2021, during the pandemic, the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, in 2021 passed, and there was a provision for the Child Tax Credit that was providing benefits to families with certain with children with meeting certain requirements, and the IRS had to quickly stand up an online portal to be able to give taxpayers access to that information to submit requests for those family benefits. And in order to do that, we had to quickly ramp up. We did some market research and some testing of various credential service providers, and ultimately we selected ID.me and to provide our identity verification and credential management services. And we were able to then quickly launch. This was in March of 2021, I believe, when ARPA passed. And in June of 2021, we launched our secure access digital identity platform, call it SADI, in-house. And it was NIST compliant, that we all are familiar with, NIST 800-63, as well as didn't require users to have a financial footprint. They could upload their documents through a self-service portal, do liveness detection, and create their online account through ID.me, and have access to the various services that we were providing, starting with the CTC Up. It had a lot of benefits to the service. It cut back on our service cost. It took the burden away from our non-digital channels. We are still working through mounds of paper. I think we're getting very close to getting through all the paper that backlog from the pandemic. So this was great benefits to us. And another bonus was with this new platform, new process, we are able to accept federated credentials from ID.me. So users who already had a ID.me credential, they just had to come to IRS, consent, and then have access to the information on SADI.
No, I recognize it was a busy time because you mentioned it, but it's pretty remarkable that this is a time when IRS was also shifting from being a tax collector to being a benefits administrator. And so at the same time, that was being accelerated on you, and you were accelerating your timelines. We were already in discussions to go live late in 2021, and then the signal came over to us and said, oh, by the way, it's not going to be late 2021, it's going to be June of 21, so much earlier. And at the time, ID.me was live with over 25 states doing unemployment insurance. We had been scaling our platform from through the end of 2020 through the spring of 2021. But the kind of scale that we're talking about with ACTC and this kind of scale that IRS operates was another level from where we were. And so we had plans in place, but this pretty dramatically accelerated the plans. And so we went into full operational planning, full scaling mode, and did what we could to accelerate our plans to be ready for the go live for ACTC with IRS in June of 2021. And there was, I know there was a lot of questions about confidence in us, and it was one of those things that we knew we could do it. We knew we were up for the task, and had to demonstrate to you so you could be comfortable going live.
Yeah, thank you. So since we launched our modernized platform, a lot has happened. Thinking back many years, I've got some of my colleagues in the room here. We have, to date, approximately 40 million taxpayers have created their new IRS online account through ID.me to access online services. As I said, we started with the Child Tax Credit update portal, and then we quickly moved to the 36 other applications we had on our legacy platform, moved them behind our modernized platform. And we, with the Inflation Reduction Act, if you're familiar with that, there is transformation and modernization money that's come to the IRS. There are so many new technologies, services, features, tools that are going online at IRS. There's this big shift to digitize our forms and processes. And so it's 36 and counting. And I think I mentioned we had some big news today, our direct file, which is the ability to file your return directly with the IRS. That is going permanent as an application. There are other IRA tax provisions around clean energy, clean vehicle that are also behind our modernized platform. And we also launched business tax account, where you have the ability to authenticate as an individual. And then through data and policy, we have a team of folks looking at how we can connect that SSN to an EIN. So if an individual is affiliated with a business or a tax exempt or a government entity, they have the ability to access their tax information online through the business tax account or through entity authorization. So in looking at the numbers, oops, what was already there? Yes. So we accept 160 million individual returns. So think about it. We got 40 million created users. We've got 120 million opportunity there, plus another 100 million various other filings that we receive annually. So we have a lot of opportunity there to increase our user base. We've worked very closely with IDME to to look at some unique use cases, and we have got some great information that we're going to share in just a few minutes, and we're let's see what we have here. All right, there we are. Okay. Through this modernized platform, we've increased our success rates. As I mentioned, there was no longer a need to have a financial footprint, and we are also had the ability to authenticate users who are have a foreign address or phone number, or don't have a social security number. They have an ITIN, and are looking at other unique use cases. We have foreign filers who don't have an SSN, but are required to have an IRS online account to meet their filing obligations. So a lot of great things happening there. We also, our new system has new options for beyond, as he mentioned, beyond the self-service. There's the video chat. There's also, IDME offers 24/7 multilingual customer support and some other features. And also, with our filing season, it's starts mid-January, ends April 15th. We have the ability to be able to, we meet regularly to talk about how we can, look back at what worked, what issues do we have, how can we look for continuously improving our processes and expanding the user base based on, some of the lessons learned and the conversations that we hold together.
Yeah, I think that's right, Angela. And one of the things that she says a lot to us is your success is our success. And so we recognize that there's a lot of trust put in us, but we also realize that success is a bit of a moving target, and that became pretty acutely, known to us in the spring of 2022, where when the market wants something, the market tends to be pretty noisy. And it became pretty obvious to us at the time that the market was looking for a way to get to IAL2 without the use of biometrics. And so the products that we have today that we deploy with IRS have evolved pretty tremendously since we first went live in 2021. And early of 2022 was what I would say was a period of pretty intense innovation. And so when it became clear that the market and many taxpayers wanted to have an option to get to IAL2 without the use of biometrics, we innovated very quickly with IRS, released what we call our direct to trusted referee pathway, where a user can go direct to a video agent, and did that in a span of about 3 weeks. So it was a need that came up in the middle of tax season when IRS is in the middle of a code freeze and doesn't want to make many changes to their platform in the middle of their Super Bowl. And here we were making innovations and releasing them in partnership with IRS. But even since then, the needs of the IRS have evolved as you do more benefits management, as you are launching business applications in addition to individual applications, as you're reaching more user bases. So the way I think about how we've had to evolve to keep pace with your needs, I put things into a customer experience and inclusiveness and a fraud bucket. And from a customer experience standpoint, talked about trusted referee. We've also enabled people to schedule appointments to visit trusted referees, so they can wait in line, they can schedule an appointment and come back later. We've also given, because we now support IRS across both business and individual contexts, users have the ability to have both business and individual profiles and engage with, in the way that they see fit. From an inclusiveness standpoint, we've added languages, so now people can engage with us through the verification process in 240 different languages in our video chat and 22 languages in our self-serve. There was a lot of interactions for users from Puerto Rico for the first time with IRS through the pandemic, because These are people who are not normally federal taxpayers, but they were recipients of benefits that were administered by IRS, and so had to engage with IRS for the first time. And those users had slightly different needs. We had to scale some of our Spanish language capacity, and then we also had to accept new document evidence for users from Puerto Rico in order to make sure that they could get through the verification process. And so we were able to innovate that pretty quickly with IRS. And then the last piece on the inclusiveness front was international users. So it's not just users overseas, but when a private entity engages users overseas, we also have a different compliance regimes that we have to meet. So we had to accelerate our GDPR conformance in order to address users who were trying to access IRS from overseas, and then also people without social security numbers who may have had ITINs but no social security numbers, and how do we handle those users? And then lastly, from a fraud standpoint, it's something that's obviously been talked about a lot at this conference, is deep fakes, social engineering, et cetera. Those threats are real. They have certainly evolved over the last 3 years, and IRS is a big target for fraud. And so it's something, theft of taxpayer information, and then also filing of fraudulent returns. And so it's something that we've had to partner very closely with IRS to stay ahead of what those threats look like. And what we're doing today may not be good enough in the future, so that's a constant process that we work on in close partnership with IRS.
So I know we talked about a couple of these lessons learned, choices, getting to performance across various demographics, looking at network collaboration, as Wes mentioned, combining algorithms and technology with human alternatives. Those were some of the lessons learned. I think you mentioned with the TR Express, having the ability to schedule appointments to up. The wait times were long during filing season, so we had a conversation about how do we manage that, and having the ability to upload documents and then schedule a time to have a video chat call were some of those, the ongoing interactions that we've had. And then as far as some key takeaways, I mentioned about creating your online account, stay vigilant, educate your friends and families about online digital hygiene, social engineering, and so forth. Learn about active threat vectors and so forth, and reporting scams, and making sure that you claim your digital identity before someone else does. Wes?
Angela, I think the only one that I'll expand on a little bit is that last one there, where it's our belief that algorithms alone aren't enough to get it done. What we see is that they tend to let down underserved populations. So as Angela mentioned, they were struggling with people that didn't exist in financial records before they came to work with IDME. And we certainly see that true in our data. And so what we see is that when you bring humans into the mix and you give fallbacks and alternatives, you can close about 75% of the digital divide that's left by algorithm-only solutions. And so, I think our work with IRS and what we see in our data, as well as, agency data, is that, combining those algorithms, backstopping them with humans, and having the two working in concert is the best way to reach all corners of the population, because when you have 160 million taxpayers, you don't have a choice. You have to reach everybody. And so giving them more options by which to go and verify their identity is the best way to reach your entire user base.
All right, and then call to action. I think we covered most of these. More consumer education on cyber hygiene. Let's start young. Let's, start teaching kids about, the claiming your digital identity, learning about fraud and social engineering and so forth, and put some public service announcements out there. We need some of that schoolhouse rock out there to teach people about, it is safe. Being online can be safe if you're educated and you have that good digital hygiene that will protect you, your identity from scams and from fraud. Shutting down ways scammers can reach victims, and then provide consistent experience across sectors. We're meeting here today. We've got a mix of public and private in the room here today. We all need to work together. There's 2,700 people at this conference this week, and we're all here for the same reason. So, All right, Wes, anything else?
No, I mean, I think just a foot stomp, what you mentioned is, this is a group that understands fraud. We're all identity professionals in this room, but the average consumer may not. And so I think it's actually incumbent upon this group to educate people about what good cyber hygiene is, what they need to do to protect their information. If they have credentials, how do they protect their credentials? And so if I have one call to action for this group, it would be that. Like, go help us educate consumers to be, aware of the threats that I think all of us are aware of to help make all of our jobs, easier in the future. And with that, I think do we have time for one or two questions? Okay, all right. So then maybe.
Okay, Vlad, I'll bring you a mic.
Thank you. I'm gonna ask, yes, very quick. I'm going to have a very simple question, but very touchy one. Do you have a process of deprovisioning people in your system? And what this process looks like? Thank you. Usually people don't report when they deprovision for obvious reasons.
Yes, we do have a process when we identify that there has been, if I understand your question, where we see that there's known or suspected fraud. We have a process where we look at the information, the data, the facts and circumstances, and we do restrict accounts. We turn off access.
I meant when actually person is completely deprovisioned from the planet.
Yeah.
Oh, you understand?
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So I said
I
people
understand.
deprovision from the planet because unfortunately a lot of situations from the fraud standpoint is when dead
Yes.
people's social security
Thank you.
numbers are used. Thank
So
you.
we do have in our tax account there is a indicator of deceased taxpayers, and when an account is created and the credential is passed from IRS, we do a back end check to make sure you are an active taxpayer. We have an account and that you are living and not a prisoner. There's certain indicators that we check for before that consent screen comes on and the access is granted. Sorry about that.
You'll see.
Any other questions?
This might be irrelevant, but I was a victim of fraud before I started paying taxes as a student, and the IRS's solution for that to date for the rest of my life is that I have to have an IP PIN mailed to me. I'm curious if there's any impact like that this might have on modernizing that approach.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that is the process, and the process is there to protect you, your information, your data. But it also enables you to have that online access still with that IP PIN.
You said claim your digital identity before someone else does. Can you elaborate on that? Because I don't want someone else to use my digital identity.
Yeah, I think the gentleman that just spoke, the reason why he has an IP PIN is because someone else filed, he was a victim of identity fraud. Someone took over his account and filed a tax return and claimed a refund so that when he went to go file his return, there was already a return filed in his name. So there's a whole process for that through the Taxpayer Protection Program. If you go to irs.gov, there's a lot of great information there on Taxpayer Protection Program that explains the process and what you could do to reclaim your account, create an IP PIN if that's an option for you, as well as file your return and process your return, either your payment or issue the refund.
So during the verification process, what was your success rate for doing all on the digital channel with a biometric versus someone scheduling an appointment? And also, how successful was that as far as getting these people verified?
So at IAL2 level, which obviously is where the NIST bar is, across, I won't speak to IRS specifics, but across federal agencies, our true pass rate, it varies a little bit, but it's north of 85%. And that's a mix of, some agencies see as high as 93%, but that depends on, what the user base is. And then that's a mix of the pathways, right? Because right now, included in that rate is just our self-serve and our video chat. But we do also offer an in-person pathway that's been tested by a few agencies. It's live out at the state level, but still in testing at the federal level. And so we would expect it to, once that's live, expect it to go up a little bit as well.
Time for one more.
Thank you. What is your redress process for people who have been denied access or denied an account, but that's not correct? So there was a false positive.
Recourse. So if we can't collect enough evidence to meet NIST IAL2 standards, we let the user know to their address of record, their email address, say, hey, we weren't unable to verify your identity. And we always give them an option to contact our member support. And we do offer 24/7 member support accessible through a couple of different channels. And what that does is when somebody submits a ticket, it kicks off an additional review process to find out, okay, what was the problem here? Why did this person not pass the process? And then our agents, if they can resolve it over email by working with the user, they will. If it requires some outbounding, our customer support representatives and our trusted referees can outbound to the user to try to complete the verification process. But when if we don't clear the bar, this is one of the ways that we can also flush out the fraudsters from the legitimate people, because if you tell a fraudster, hey, we weren't able to do it, they'll typically give up and move on. And so we know that a more legitimate person is more likely to contact, and so that's why we route them through our customer support.
Wes and Angela, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
That's it for this session. Thank you all for coming, and enjoy the rest of the show.